Lovely to talk to you, Catherine.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
As women age, they're often not seen as sexual beings anymore. Let's talk about positive sexuality first. Are older women sexual beings?
Absolutely, they are sexual beings. And I think if anyone says to you that older women aren't sexual beings, we should ask them at what age do they stop being sexual. You know, it's not like we wake up on our 65th birthday and say that's it. It's something that changes over the course of our lives. And one of the things that changes in particular is society's attitude to older women's sexuality in particular. I think there's much more of a focus on older men's sexuality, but much less of a focus on older women. And they're thought to be asexual. I've just edited a book actually on the sexual rights of older people. And it's really around the right to information, the right to choices and control. All these things are really incredibly important as we age.
You were the chief investigator for Norma's project documenting older women's experiences of elder abuse. How much sexual abuse do you uncover? Because we hear a lot about financial abuse. Oh, mum doesn't need the house anymore, or the shares, or the money, or the whatever.
One of the things about sexual abuse is there's been a lot of silence because of that perception that older women aren't sexual and that old age is a protective factor against sexual abuse. And we know that's not the case. Sexual abuse is about power and control. It's not about sexual attraction. So we've not really opened up conversations with older women about sexual abuse. So there's a massive issue with underreporting.
Underreporting of what?
Underreporting of sexual abuse. So most of the sexual abuse, I think, from Norma's project and the conversations people have with me, that most of the sexual abuse that takes place is around older women being sexually abused by their intimate partners or another family member. And there's a really significant problem of underreporting because of the shame and silence around that. And a lot of older women that I've spoken to have also said that when they did try to tell someone, they felt like they weren't heard, so they gave up. Now we know more broadly, you know, if you look at women in particular, or more broadly, it's only about 20% of sexual assaults are reported. And that's because of the shame and the stigma around sexual assault, and also too because with a sexual assault, it's about one person's word against the other. So there's really low levels of reporting more broadly, and that's consolidated for older women because of the fact that we don't listen, but also to a broad range of other factors. Like you can imagine an older woman who's being sexually abused by a family member, perhaps her partner of 60 years. What happens if she reports the sexual abuse? Does she have to leave the family home? Does it disrupt the family relationships? Does she still get to see her grandchildren? Do her children disown her? All those things are things that women take into consideration when they think about reporting. And I guess one of the things that's really strong across the stories of sexual abuse is that that most older women have spent most of their married lives with marital rape immunity laws. So until the 1980s in Australia,
you couldn't be raped by your husband.
You couldn't be raped by your husband. And the older women that I've spoken to have said that for those that were being raped by their husbands, if they told often their mothers, the GP or the local priest, they were told, that is your responsibility, go back and be a good wife. So there is this real sense of disloyalty that stops older women from reporting sexual abuse. And then, of course, the silence as well.
Does age make a particular woman more vulnerable to sexual abuse, or typically have these women been enduring sexual abuse for decades?
I think it's actually a little bit of both. There are older women who've been enduring sexual abuse all their lives. There are some older women who remarry and find themselves in a relationship where the partner's abusive. And that's really that intimate partner abuse. But we know as well too from the research that sexual abuse happens in the context of institutions. So predominantly residential aged care, but also too in acute care, in rehab, in day centres.
What happens?
Largely speaking, it seems to be service provider abuse, sexual abuse by service provider. And then there are stories as well that have been shared with us in the research work that we've done where older women have been sexually assaulted by another resident in a residential aged care facility.
And how well recognised is the risk from the service providers? Or is there a stigma around, well, nobody's going to rape her, she's 80 years old?
There is really very little recognition of older women's risk of sexual abuse. In fact, there is a myth that old age is a protective factor against sexual abuse because older women are thought not to be sexually attractive, so therefore that they don't get sexually abused, rather than an understanding that it's about power. So the fact that there is such ignorance and not a lot of information out there about sexual abuse means that older women who do report, particularly in the context of an institution, who report that they have been sexually assaulted. I mean, one case that comes to mind is an older woman who was in a rehab unit. She told her daughter that she had been sexually abused by a nurse, and the feedback when her daughter reported it to the nursing staff, the staff said he would not do that because he's a younger man, she's an older woman. Why would he sexually assault her? He's got a wife and children. Why would he do it? He wouldn't do it. Your mother clearly has dementia. And the woman that I interviewed said her mother didn't have dementia. Her mother was as clear as anything. So then the silence then continues. So he's not held to account. She's been sexually abused and feels like she's not been heard. So there's no kind of redress. There's not the sort of therapeutic interventions that you would provide to somebody who was sexually abused and heard or believed.
So what's the Power Project?
The Power Project is a project that I launched today, actually, and it's really because I'm getting an increasing number of calls from service providers and family members who recognise the work that I'm doing around sexual rights of older people and the work that I'm doing around sexual abuse in particular. And so they're ringing me to share stories with me, stories of sexual abuse, and asking me what can we do? What do we need to do next? And there's a lot of misinformation out there. So the Power Project is really about having a central portal, a website that people can go to, and it's kind of like I hope it will be a one-stop shop, a total resource on information around preventing sexual abuse, and in particular on how to respond when an older woman reports sexual abuse. So that was launched this morning, and at the moment it has things like, over the course of the last couple of years talking to older women, I've learned a lot about the services that are out there. For example, the first time somebody shared a sexual abuse with me, I suggested to them that they contact the police. I didn't realise that there are specialist sexual assault services within most of the police services. I didn't understand that. So documenting that on the webpage means if somebody's been sexually abused, they can go to this webpage and they can go, all right, our local police, I want to ask for the SOCIT, the Sexual Assault Prevention Team. And they find information about the CASAs, the Centres Against Sexual Assault. And from reading on the webpage, they'll read that they can access the CASA to provide counselling and debriefing to the older woman who's been sexually abused. Whether or not it's been, the case has been proven, if an older woman is distressed and feels she's been sexually abused, the CASA can come in and provide that emotional support that's incredibly important. And they can also provide debriefing for staff particularly, or family members as well too. So all of those things that I've discovered as I've been responding to people who contact me, I've put on a website, and it's really a campaign to raise awareness. And one of the other parts of it that's particularly important is around it's time to listen. So this slogan, it's time to listen to older women who report sexual abuse, is really around, it's not around saying, older women are sexually abused. That's a given. It's when older women report, they need to be heard, you need to listen.
Is this a phenomenon that you can hope to deal with, or you could dream of preventing?
I think we can deal with it and prevent it. I think one of the things, the website and the Power Project is dedicated to prevention of sexual abuse of older women. And really, the way we're going to prevent it is by responding, in the first place, by responding when older women report abuse. So what's happening at the moment is older women largely who report sexual abuse are not believed, they're not heard, so no one responds, so they continue in those situations where they're being sexually abused. And in some cases, particularly where it's a service provider, the service provider moves to another facility or moves to another service, and the abuse continues. So by addressing and responding to older women who experience sexual abuse, we can actually prevent sexual abuse from happening.
How can people find the POWER Project?
People can go to the Opal Institute webpage, and that's opalinstitute.org, and then go to the POWER Project on that page. So that's a website dedicated to the sexual rights of older people.
Catherine, thank you so much.
Ellen, a heartfelt thank you for the opportunity to be part of this. I greatly appreciate it.